Gentlemen, welcome. Today is the day that your hair loss becomes a thing of the past. Like necromancers, we're gonna bring that hair back from the grave, and you would be very surprised to see what people are able to come back from. So today we're gonna have a comprehensive look into how to stop hair loss and grow more hair. And I'm talking from your natural remedies to your over-the-counter solutions, your prescription solutions, different types of devices, research chemicals. We're covering it all. I'm Angel with The Modern Man. I'm a chemist specifically focused on men's care. I actually have had 3 different types of hair loss and managed to have my hair recover. This is what I looked like when I was experiencing a lot of my hair loss, but we'll get all into that and get to it. Hair loss sucks. Around 80% of men will have hair loss in their lifetime. It really starts to kick off to most men around the age of 35, around 40% plus, and it's very avoidable. In fact, there's so many good solutions available for hair loss, and there's more that are even coming out in the coming years. And if men were to know about these types of solutions and use them, the majority of men, the vast majority of men, would have an excellent head of hair well into their 30s, 40s, and 50s. We are primarily going to focus on androgenic alopecia today, which is male pattern baldness. This is what impacts most men. There are other types of hair loss, from your nutritional deficiencies to having like fungus and inflammation based on the scalp, to telogen effluvium, which is temporary based on like stressful events, to your alopecia areata, which is a underlying autoimmune condition that causes the hair follicles to get attacked, and you get these little circles of hair missing on your scalp and all over your body. First, let's talk nutritional deficiency. A lot of people want to jump to this immediately, thinking this is why they're losing their hair. It very well could be. If you're deficient in vitamin D, you're deficient in iron and many other nutrients, this could definitely mean that you're going to be losing hair. Your hair's not going to be as strong, your hair's not going to be as healthy. If you're taking a good multivitamin supplement, then there's a good chance that you're getting all of the nutrients that you need to have a good, healthy head of hair. One that people really buy into is biotin, and I gotta say, biotin is so everywhere in our diet, from fruits, vegetables, dairy products, different types of whole grain. And so the instances where a guy is biotin deficient is few and far between. It's possible. Typically you'll see biotin deficiency if someone is on like Accutane, which is called isotretinoin for acne, or if they are like downing tons of raw egg whites like Sylvester Stallone or something. All right, so let's briefly talk about natural supplements that are out there to help with hair loss. I'm gonna bucket these all into kind of the same bucket because they all do tend to fall in the same bucket. And excuse me, I have to kind of read these here because it's just so many. Things like your oral pumpkin seed oil, castor oil, rosemary oil, saw palmetto, peppermint essential oil, green tea extract, caffeine. And these all fall in the same bucket in that there are some studies to support that they could be helpful. However, none of them are really good studies. There's either a major conflict of interest on the study, the participant size group is too small. You just don't really see a like placebo-controlled, double-blinded, randomized controlled trial with a sufficient amount of participants and that's peer-reviewed to say that these are definitely going to help out. So they may help. I don't want to say that they're not going to help you. I personally would opt for the things that are known to help with hair loss, because with hair loss, any time spent on ineffective solutions is hair that you may very well not get back. So if I was going to personally use any of these natural supplements, it wouldn't be to replace what's out there today and what's proven to help with hair loss. It would be in conjunction with what's out there today, or if for some reason I couldn't use the other options that are available for hair loss, then maybe I would try some of these instead. Right before getting into the tried and true, let's talk about why hair loss occurs when it comes to androgenic alopecia. So the male sex hormone is testosterone. So we produce a lot of testosterone, and there is an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. And so what this enzyme does is it takes testosterone and converts it into a very, very potent form called dihydrotestosterone. Now, DHT, dihydrotestosterone, is critical as we are growing up for developing male sex traits and becoming a man, basically. It becomes less useful after around 18 to 21 years old, and what ends up happening is we have androgen receptors in our scalp and the hair follicles, and that is binding, the DHT is binding to that androgen receptor, and what this causes is a miniaturization of the hair follicle, and over time the hair follicle then falls out and doesn't grow back. So to stop hair loss, we really want some sort of an anti-androgen to stop the underlying issue of DHT attaching to the hair follicles, causing that miniaturization, causing the hair to fall out. And additionally, we want something that's gonna promote the growth of new healthy hairs. Enter the big three, and if you already are familiar with the big three, I promise there's gonna be more to this video than that, so stick around with me. Let's start with the big three. It really should be the big two if we're being honest, but this is Finasteride, Minoxidil, and then Ketoconazole Shampoo. Let's start with Minoxidil. So this is the growth agonist side of the equation. It's what's gonna help grow hair. Minoxidil was found out because it was a oral pill that was taken to treat hyperplasia, which is an enlarged prostate, and it was found that unwanted hair growth was occurring, and that's how they found out that it grows hair, and it does it really well. It actually grows about 15 to 20 hairs per centimeter squared on the scalp. They have this in an oral form, they have it in a topical form. For most people, topical form is the way to go because oral just has a lot more side effects and can cause a lot of issues systemically. But the topical form is typically something that you're gonna use at about 5%, and you'll apply it to the area of hair loss or where you wanna grow hair. It also works on like eyebrows or on the beard as well. And this is going to move more hairs into the anagen phase, which is the growth phase of hair, and prolong that phase. It's going to shorten the telogen phase, which is the phase where your hair stops growing and gets ready to fall out. And so this causes hairs to fall out a little bit early so that they can get into the anagen phase again. And this is a good thing. It can be scary at first because it means when you're using minoxidil, it's gonna look like you're losing hair and it's causing you to lose hair, but this is really because your hairs are getting ready to be new and healthy as opposed to staying in that telogen phase where they're not growing at all. It helps to grow more healthy hairs, and the hairs that are shrinking, it helps to expand those hair follicles and so prolong how long you'll have hair before you lose it. It doesn't stop the underlying hair loss, so over time that will end up winning because you're losing more hair than what you're gaining from minoxidil. And so you definitely want to address that underlying androgen side of the house as well, which we'll get into. As I mentioned, you can get the 5% version, you can get it in a liquid, you can get it as a foam, you can get it from Costco, you can get it from Amazon, you can get it from your local drugstore. There's a lot of places that you can get it. Again, get the 5% variant, that's really what you want, that has the most efficacy. And you're gonna be applying it twice a day. It has a half-life of about 22 hours, but the studies showed that applying it twice a day was by far more effective than using it once a day, so definitely do that. That's what I do. I put it on the areas where I want the hair growth. As for how long this will take to work, it usually works at about 3 to 6 months is when you'll start to see new hairs start to sprout about. Now the catch to using minoxidil is that the hairs that grow from minoxidil are reliant on minoxidil to grow, and so what this means is if you stop using minoxidil, in 3-4 weeks, you're gonna start seeing more shedding of the hairs because those hairs were reliant on minoxidil. It won't cause any additional hair loss, so it's not gonna make your other hair fall out. And so over time, some people will think that minoxidil has caused hair loss, but usually it's because they haven't addressed the underlying condition with the androgens that was causing hair loss. So if you use minoxidil for 3 years, and then you stop using minoxidil, not only are you gonna lose the minoxidil hairs, but it's gonna become more noticeable the hairs that you were losing from the underlying androgenic alopecia. Some people don't like the idea of feeling reliant on something. They don't like the idea of having to take it for the rest of their lives. I don't personally see that as an issue just because it takes maybe 60 seconds to use it twice a day. And it's when I'm already washing my face and getting ready for bed or waking up and getting prepared anyway, so it's not a big deal for me to do. And I see it almost like taking a vitamin or taking caffeine or working out. Like these aren't things that you're reliant on. You don't have to do them, but maybe you want to do them because you want the best possible outcome. So for me, I just don't see it as that big of a deal. Side effect wise, nothing too crazy. It is an over-the-counter medicine. If you have a heart condition, it's something to be aware of because this can increase your heart rate. It can cause chest pain potentially, but some of the other side effects that are a bit more common is gonna be like local irritation, itching, dry skin at the site of application. Some people have reported things like headaches or like flushing of the skin, dark circles under the eyes, or water retention in the face. But the good news is if that does happen to you, if you stop taking minoxidil, then those will go away. It's nothing that's gonna be permanent. To get the most out of your minoxidil, there's 2 options to really boost the efficacy of it. So first off, some people don't really respond to minoxidil, and this is because minoxidil converts into minoxidil sulfate, which is the usable form that actually helps your hair grow. And in order for that to take place, that conversion, it actually has an enzyme called the sulfotransferase enzyme, and this converts the minoxidil. So for those who don't respond, there's actually studies that found that the use of topical tretinoin, which is a prescription retinoid, has actually been shown to upregulate the sulfotransferase enzymes And this has resulted in the majority of non-responders to minoxidil then becoming responders. I personally have used it, and even though I have response to minoxidil, I had even more when I was using tretinoin. Another thing that you can do is you can use microneedling. So microneedling has been shown to 2 and 3x the amount of hair growth that you get from minoxidil. You can go get it done professionally, or it's easier to do it at home. There are plenty of studies supporting that it's easy and safe to do at home. And you can use that with a derma rolling device or some sort of a microneedling device. I use the Derminator 2. For the tretinoin, you're going to be wanting to use a dose of around 0.025. You can also use 0.05 as well. Studies use 0.01, which is very difficult to find. But start off using it topically, like twice a week, and then start ramping up till you can start using it daily, just to get your skin used to it and make sure that you're not getting excess irritation or anything from it. For microneedling, there is no real sweet spot. There was a big study that found that 1.5 millimeters was like this really nice place to get that 2 to 3x hair growth. But since then, there's been all these studies all over the place to find different depths being effective. So the consensus is anything over about 0.6 millimeters is ideal for improving hair growth. And so if you're using a smaller depth, you might want to up the frequency. So if you're doing 0.6 millimeters, maybe it's something that you're using every few days. Whereas if you're using 1.5 millimeters, you could do it like once a week, once every 2 weeks. If you're unsure of how to microneedle, see my video right here where I walk you through exactly how it works and how to do it. Next, we want to address the underlying cause of the hair loss, which is the androgens with something like Finasteride. So this is a oral medication. You can also get it in a topical form. Very easy for you to get a hold of if you just talk with your doctor. You can also talk with another doctor via a service like Keeps, Hims, or Roman, and via like a webcam discussion, you are able to get prescribed it, no problem. So what Finasteride does is, we mentioned you have testosterone, you have 5-alpha reductase, and testosterone. So this targets the 5-alpha reductase right in the middle, and it inhibits it. And by inhibiting it, you actually have less testosterone being converted to DHT, and so you have around 70% less DHT, so less DHT is binding to your hairs, which means less hair loss for you. As I mentioned, it's often in an oral tablet form, so it is about 1 milligram that you'll get, that you'll take daily. It has actually been shown to still be very impactful for hair loss at about milligrams. So if you are having issues with any side effects, which I'll get into in just a moment here, then you can always do a smaller dose or take that 1 milligram and use it every 2 days or every 3 days. It has a half-life of about 4 to 6 hours, but it also stays in the skin's tissue for about 4 to 5 days, so that's why taking it on kind of an alternating schedule tends to still work. This does tend to work in about 3 to 6 months, similar to how minoxidil will work as well. And generally, you don't really want to start using this if you can until you're at least 21 years of older, but you can get it at the age of 18 plus. And again, that was because earlier we mentioned that DHT is important as you are becoming a man and going through puberty, and so you want to make sure that you're fully through that before looking into something like Finasteride. Side effect wise, we're primarily looking at things that sound really terrifying as a man, but there's good news behind it. So there is the risk of loss of libido, loss of less ejaculatory fluid, and loss in erection quality. The good news though is that these studies found this at about a 3.8% side effect profile for Finasteride, but over time it actually matched that of the placebo group at 2.1%. And what they actually found was that continuing use of Finasteride over time or stopping use of Finasteride over time in all cases got rid of these side effects, so they are by no means permanent. There have been a small number of reports of those saying that they have had long-term side effects resulting from Finasteride. The difficulty with these is it's difficult to know what is actually causing a side effect, and you have to take into account the placebo and the nocebo effect. And as of to date, there's no scientific evidence to say that any of this is actually possible or has happened. However, things are always possible. The science has been proven right, science has been proven wrong. It's just there's no good scientific evidence to date to say that there's any risk of any long-term complications as a result of using Finasteride. However, there are some new solutions that are on the horizon that will be discussed later that you could potentially use if you have issues with Finasteride or just feel uncomfortable using it. So the next part of the big three is going to be Ketoconazole Shampoo. This isn't as effective as it was once thought, but it is something that could still be a good tool in your toolkit to combat hair loss. It's not going to stop hair loss on its own, but again, it's helpful in conjunction with the Finasteride and the minoxidil. I like to use Revita or Regenipure personally for my choice of Ketoconazole shampoo. There's also Nizoral as well. It just doesn't have very good ingredients that restore much to the hair after using it. You can also get prescription, which is going to be more proper in following the studies because the prescription version has 2% ketoconazole versus these having 1% and less. When you use this, you'll apply it to your scalp, and you want to really leave it on the scalp for about 3 to 5 minutes for that to really sink in. And the way that this works is, again, addressing two things. So one is it more so addresses hair loss that's based from like inflammation and scalp conditions, but it also has a mild DHT inhibiting effect to the scalp, and so it can help so you are effectively stopping some of the binding of the DHT to the hair follicles. Getting into some of the other solutions out there for hair loss, and one I forgot about is actually like and subscribe. Drop a comment, please. It very much helps the channel. I would very much appreciate it. But what I had missed was L-carnitine L-tartrate. So this is a amino acid, and there's a very good study that found using this at 2% when applied topically had improved hair growth by about 27 hairs per centimeter. It increased the amount of hairs in the anagen phase versus the telogen phase by about 13+%. So what you'll want to do is L-carnitine L-tartrate, very easy to get off of Amazon, very cheap, and take about 1.2 milliliters of it and apply it to your 60 milliliter solution of Minoxidil. So it would be for the liquid form, because it's going to be applied at 2%, and then just use your Minoxidil how you normally would. Now, the caveat is that there was a conflict of interest in the study. I do still feel strongly about recommending this though, just because one, I've used it, two, I've seen others with good results from using it, and then three, there's really no downside to using it other than it has a little bit of a fishy smell, so maybe you don't like that. But because it's so cheap, it's so easy to do, it's like you kind of might as well do it and try it. Next, things like PRP, low-level laser therapy. There's been some promise with things like PRP used for hair loss. It is on the more expensive side to go get treatments with it. So that's kind of the caveat to using it, but it is something that can definitely help grow more hair. It's not going to address the underlying loss, but it'll grow more healthy hairs. Now, for low-level laser therapy, one, it's very time-consuming to do. It's a little on the expensive side. There is evidence to suggest that it is helpful, but it's nothing tremendously helpful. And if I was going to use one of those laser helmets, I would probably use it in addition to the other forms of treatment, because it works from it has a different mechanism of action than these other methods, but it is a lot of work, and I want to make sure that I'm getting the bulk of my gains from these other things that work extremely well, so it would be just kind of an extra that I do. Another anti-androgen option that's topical is RU58841. Now, it isn't exactly like safe or unsafe, so there's nothing to really say that it has caused any major issues in people to any significant extent. However, it's not FDA approved, and it is a research chemical, so it's not something that you are supposed to be able to use anyways. I will say though, however, it is very, very effective. I personally have used it on a research subject of mine, and that research subject found that it was more effective than Finasteride and about on that same level as Dutasteride. And Dutasteride is like almost like a stronger version of Finasteride, that instead of inhibiting 5-AR and blocking 70% of DHT, it stops 90+% of DHT. So it's too bad that work with RU58841 pretty much got dropped, so it's not really going to see the light of day in terms of FDA approval or anything like that anytime soon, but it is something that is a very potent topical anti-androgen. Briefly mentioned Dutasteride is like a stronger version of Finasteride, stops 90+% of DHT production. I've personally used that one for a while, and it works absolutely wonderfully. Has the same similar type of side effect profile to that of Finasteride. The difference is Dutasteride is not technically FDA approved for the treatment of hair loss, so when you get it prescribed, it is prescribed off-label. So another exciting one that's coming out in the next few years that's going to be a topical solution to address the androgen side of the house is clascoterone, also known as CB0301 and Brazula. So this one is expected for launch sometime in 2024, so it's very, very exciting. In terms of its efficacy, again, it is a topical. It has been found to be there's only one study that showed that it was even equivalent to Finasteride, and that was in vitro, but the rest of them showed it to be a little bit weaker, but it is something that's still effective, especially if you're having issues or just don't want to use Finasteride. Interestingly enough, it's actually used to help with acne as well, and what it does is it actually binds to the androgen receptors at the hair follicle, and it prevents them from picking up DHT. So it's not actually stopping the production of DHT, you'll still have that in your system. It's just stopping the DHT from actually binding to the hair follicles. So this is definitely an exciting one to keep an eye on, and I'll be really curious as to what the pricing is gonna be of it when it comes out, but I guess we'll see when that happens. And the last one is to help the growth side of the house, similar to Minoxidil. It's called Stamoxidine. It was actually developed by L'Oreal. And again, it is developed by a manufacturer, right? So the studies you're never sure about. However, I've seen tons and tons of antidotes for stomachidine working. It's not going to be quite as effective as something like a 5% minoxidil, but it is something that you could add to be able to grow more healthy hairs. It's easy to get a hold of. You can order it right on Amazon. That about wraps it up, guys. You now have a very comprehensive look on how to tackle your hair loss. And there are other things that I left out, things like Floridel and these things that are like FDA, the equivalent of FDA approved in other countries. I didn't want to get into too many niche things, but if you have questions about those, please drop them in the comments below. Let's have a discussion about them. I'll catch you next time. I'm Angel with The Modern Man. So for more tips on science-backed men's care and aesthetics, you know where to find me.